All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Christy Schmidt. I work with the Specialty Food Association and the education side of things. I'm so excited to have you here today. Before we jump into the webinar content, just a few housekeeping things. If you do have a question throughout the webinar, you can feel free to put it in the Q&A chat function at the bottom of the screen, and we will get to your questions after the content is all set. The other thing too is that this is recorded, so we will make it available to you after the webinar in the next couple of days, as well as the slides. So, and now, before I actually jump into introducing everyone that'll be speaking, I wanted to quickly highlight a new SFA member benefit in partnership with POLA Marketing. So, SFA members now have access to complimentary professional product photography shot on a clean white background. So, this is perfect for e-commerce, retail submissions, and marketing materials. The spots are limited each month, and we currently have about 30 spots remaining for April. And you can learn more about our website via the link in the chat that I will put in just a moment. And you can sign up for April photography using that link in there as well. So now that I've talked about the relationship, I would love to introduce some folks from POLA Marketing, Jacob Reeder and Sean Cripple. So you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll get rolling.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Jacob. I am the studio manager here at Pola, and I also do a ton of photography for us and our clients. Um, a brief explanation of what Pola is: we're a full service marketing agency. So we do everything from photography, obviously, video, studio stuff like that. And in addition to that, we do full service marketing. So we're doing branding, we're doing design, web, emails, ads, anything you can think of, commercials, we're doing all of it. So I think it's kind of a good way to get introduced to more high level photography through us because we don't just look at it through a studio lens, but we also look at it through marketing and through your client outlook to make sure that not only does the photography and videography look good, but it's also serving a purpose, and hopefully at the end of the day, selling more product. I'll also introduce Sean. He's going to be on here explaining a few things with us too. So, Sean, you can introduce yourself.
Hi guys, Sean, studio photographer here at Pola. So I do indoor photography, studio photography, outdoor photography, whatever comes across the desk, we take care of photography wise. So yeah.
And Sean does a ton of our white background photography. So if you've seen us at a show or if you are participating or already have participated before in the white background, he's our main contact for that. So he's been doing a great job and we appreciate all the work he does on that. So I'm going to start presentation. We have three different silos kind of to go over today, but we'll jump right into it. First, we're going to talk about mainly lighting and photography and then a few other details just to take advantage of and then also to keep in mind if you're doing your photography or if you're looking for someone else who will be doing your photography or even some videography throughout too. So obviously this is me and Sean. And first we're going to talk about why lighting matters and what the difference in lighting is and what that makes consumers feel. So the way you light your product and the way you photograph your product makes people think differently about your product. So I'll run through a couple of examples, but the main point is that if you want someone to see your product as super luxury, shooting with some bright iPhone footage in your living room may not seem and make the consumer feel like your product is luxury and want to spend money on it. But if you shoot a super high level, dark, moody space like an upscale bar, then that's like the perfect location for you to get across what you want your consumer to see in your product or service or anything like that. So first we'll start with three different examples. They're kind of an overarching example. Obviously, there can be ones in between, ones kind of taking a little bit from each one, depending on what you're exactly going for. But these are just the ways to start thinking, how we want you guys to start thinking about your product and how you want others to perceive it. So first is a soft, warm lighting setting. So here is Elevate Organic. It's a client of ours, and they are a supplement company. And obviously, they're trying to point out to consumers that they're super organic, that are they want people to perceive them as good for you, which a lot of times supplements, a lot of times people see it as more like medicine. It's not necessarily great for you. It's not from the earth, and that's they wanted to completely shift the focus on their product and show, hey, we are from the earth. We are doing everything organically. And the way they do that, before I even explain to you guys what the product is or anything like that, is they use super warm tones. So you'll see, obviously, the moss, the more yellowy rocks they use here, the more yellowy light they use, just perceives naturally in everyone's brain before they even know about what the product is, that, oh, this is more organic, this is from the earth, this is going to be good for me. So one that's completely different is this like bright poppy example. Obviously, Poppy does a great job of this, and then Bahami is another one of our clients that we've shot for in the past. So when you're using super bright colors, everything is super contrasted. And what helps with that is if you're, say, scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, and you want your product to pop off the screen, no pun intended, and stand out, a bright, poppy, contrasted lighting setup is perfect for that. These are some great examples. Some other ones that use it, Nerds uses it a ton. Welch's, a lot of those candy companies that use super bright and poppy colors are all jumping off the screen. They're throwing a bunch of stuff at you in their videos, and that's kind of all one scheme that they use across all of their different platforms, whether it's web, design, social media, TV commercials. They had the Nerds commercial during the Super Bowl. So everything they do is in this super bright and poppy, colorful area so that everything is consistent the entire way through. And then one completely opposite from that is a dark and moody setting. So I kind of gave this example when I first started about a luxury brand. So think luxury vodka, a caviar, or something like that. Or even here, we're showing Apocalypse Coffee, which is one of our clients that we shoot for. And they might not necessarily be a super luxury brand, but they want to be perceived as luxury. So what you do is you put your product, put your consumer in a super luxury feeling setting. So I'm going to a nice bar after dinner and I'm going to grab the top shelf cocktail. And in order to put the consumer in that setting, you're going to put super dark lighting, you're going to use shadows a ton. And obviously, you still want to put your product at the forefront of the photo, just like we have here with Apocalypse, but you're putting them into that setting that they feel those feelings. And then I also added this other red photo here to kind of show, even if your product and your brand uses poppy colors, but you still want to be seen as a darker, moodier company, there's no need to completely shift and change all of your color scheme. We and other photographers are able to make your brand perceived as this high quality, super moody product, even with bright red colors. So this is obviously like a boba tea that we've shot before. And normally you would see that probably in the previous slide with super bright poppy colors, but we went a little bit of a different route because maybe you want to stand out from all the other companies that are doing bright and poppy. And this looks different in that space. So when someone's looking up to try to find their poppy boba that they need to buy for their cafe, they find yours and they're like, oh, this is different. Let me check this out. And then that leads them in order to looking for more things and kind of checking you guys out. So those are three examples of the different styles of lighting that's basically the first way you need to start thinking about photography with your brand. So how does your brand fit into not necessarily one of those three lighting setups, but something similar to that. And obviously, like I said, it can be varying between. The other way is deciding whether you want to go with hard lighting or soft lighting. First, we'll go over hard lighting. Personally, I love hard lighting. It makes things pop off the screen. It uses direct source, so we're not putting anything in front of the light. We're not bouncing anything off. A lot of times we'll use flashes, but you can also use the sun in daylight or continuous lights if you're able to get something super bright. It's going to create super strong, harsh shadows that make your product pop off the screen. Here are a couple of examples of that. So on the right side, we have the lemonade here. We do this awesome hero shot where we're putting your product up on a shelf and making the consumer look up at it and making it the hero of the shot. But it gives these super nice harsh shadows off the side and really stands out in a scroll or on a website or on an email. And then on the left side, sometimes people will think these super soft blue, white colors won't be great in a hard lighting setup. But this photo kind of shows that even though you're using these softer colors, the hard shadow, the hard lighting gets this specular hit of off the coffee that's really making it stand out and pop off the screen. The other way is a soft lighting. So, soft lighting, as we talked about earlier with the warm, soft texture feel, is used in that. It's also used a ton in portrait photography, mainly because when you start putting super hard shadows, especially on skin or on certain products, it doesn't really look great. It makes people look older or makes wrinkles come out of their skin a lot worse. But it also can be used in everyday situations. So if it's a cloudy day, you're going to have much softer shadows. You can also use something like a bed sheet or something like that just to block the sun. And all that's going to do is spread the light out a ton and make your shadows and your light a lot softer on your product. A couple of examples of those. So the one on the right, it's very similar to the photo in the hard lighting, but obviously you can see the shadows here are a lot softer. It makes the shadows on our model's hand a lot softer and feel more natural almost. It still pops off the screen in a nice, colorful way, but it feels a little bit more homey. It feels a little bit more soft in just viewing it. And then on the left, it's a little bit darker, uses soft light. You get these great specular hits off of the honey that's dripping off. But it also feels like you're sitting down at dinner with your family. It feels cozy as opposed to the super bright and poppy contrast that doesn't necessarily make you feel like that. It does catch your attention, but it's not making you feel like you're at home snuggling up and gonna chew on some nice blue cheese and sip a glass of wine. So here's a great example of those two side by side. So sometimes it's kind of hard to tell when you're looking at two completely different setups, but here it's a great example. On the left side, obviously it pops off the screen. You have this really nice hard shadow, and the colors are almost deeper. And then on the right side, you have a much softer shadow. The colors are a little bit more muted, which can be moved around a little bit in editing, but this is a great example to show you it's kind of softer. It feels a little bit more elegant at sometimes, and there's no wrong way to do it. It's kind of like I was saying, this plus the warmth, the poppy, the dark moody texture of it is how you want to start thinking about your product in order to make it be perceived correctly or the way you want people to perceive it in photos. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Sean to continue talking about white background.
So white background is a really important asset to have for your products. You can use it for website graphics. You can cut it out and use it for designs. You can use it for Google Ads, Meta Ads. It's very versatile. And a good thing about it, especially if you don't plan on editing your packaging or your colors or anything like that, it's got a really long life that you can use it for. It's not a short-term, one-time post thing. You can use it for your website redesign if you plan on doing that. Um, if you're going to sell on Amazon or Shopify, the white background is most likely what you would use for that situation. but it has a lot of uses, and some people wonder why would they get white background, um, or why they would pay for it. In this instance, we have the free white background that y'all can sign up for, which I would recommend because it makes your product uniform across however many products you have. If they're all shot in the same way, it's easy to see that they look very consistent. And like for here, for example, whether you have Tupperware, a bag is your product, or a glass bottle, it just makes your product pop a little bit more rather than having a design, like a set design for your photography. And graphics can take them and cut them out really easily. This is why you wouldn't shoot on black or gray or another color, is the white gives it a nice edge and it makes it super easy to cut out and used for graphics and stuff like that. Um, this is an example that we have used. We took pictures of these tools and the helmet and the shoes, and our designers were able to cut it out and put it on this. I believe it was used for email campaign and uh, social media post. So that's just right there as a prime example of when to use it. And for this one in the middle of all the white background, that's on their website. So if you were selling something, you could have everything like listed out and super clean, super. One thing that we say about white background is it makes your project tangible. Rather than having mock-ups or like an AI design of your product, you have the actual product there that people can see, and it makes it feel more real, and it gives your brand and your product more trust to the consumer. This is another example. They were able to take the photos that we've taken and cut them out super clean and put them on graphics for, I believe, social media and email campaigns as well. So it's a very underutilized asset that we would recommend to any client to do for their product. So, like I said, I would recommend signing up if you haven't already for the monthly signups that SFA is offering. It's a great opportunity to get a taste of white background, see how you could use it for your products.
Sweet. Alrighty. Thank you, Sean.
Awesome. Okay. So we will let questions roll in, so feel free to put questions into that Q&A. I have a few just to keep us rolling. So I think let's go. I think we're gonna go all the way back. So how do I decide which lighting style I want for my product?
Yeah, so let's go back to the beginning real quick. So I think, like I said earlier, the way you want people to perceive your product is the way you want to light it, the way you want your set to look, and the way you want to use colored lights, so softer, warmer lights as opposed to some super bright poppy colors. Um, so I think I touched on it a little bit, but essentially what you want your consumer to feel when they're either seeing your product, purchasing, or tasting your product is what you want to shoot with. So if you want your, let's say, if you want your milkshake brand to somebody sips the milkshake and it pops in their mouth, super huge flavor, then you're probably going to go bright poppy lighting setup because that's what people are going to think of when they are seeing it, buying it, and hopefully tasting it later on. If you want someone to sip your milkshake and think of their childhood with their grandma and they were in their kitchen making their own homemade milkshakes and it's just that nice vanilla or chocolate flavor that feels like home, you might shift to a softer, warmer setup that maybe is in a home setting because that's what you want your consumer to see, to want to purchase, and then to eventually taste later on. So that's just a quick example, but it's basically going back to your branding, what you want your consumer to feel, and who you want your consumer to be. And that's kind of why Sean also was saying with the white background is you can use your product and you can use your photography in so many different ways, and you want it to be completely consistent across the board.
So, how can brands incorporate this lighting knowledge if they don't have, professional studio lights?
So I touched on it a little bit, but I think a better way, let me go to these directionals. So obviously, not everybody's going to have studio super expensive lighting at their disposal like we do down in the studio, but a lot of this stuff can be done in just sunlight or even just preferably sunlight because it's a lot brighter, but even in your home too. So if you want super soft lighting similar to something here on the left side, you're going to shoot this in the sun. You have a nice light coming from this back right side, and it can be done pretty much anywhere. Obviously, the background is just a nice like bokeh of trees, and you're getting that super warm sun feeling with the warm green light in the background. Um, like I was saying earlier, if you want a much softer, you can use something like a bed sheet even to block the light, which obviously the sun's going to poke through the bed sheet, but what it's going to do is spread out the light so much more than just your sun hitting straight onto your product. So you're going to get a lot more soft light throughout the entire area of wherever you're doing it. Another way you can do it is just go somewhere that is shaded. Go on the side of your house that the sun, if your house is here and the sun's poking here, go on this side, and you're going to have a nice shaded, soft area where you're not getting direct sunlight. So it's either going to bounce off the house next to you, it's going to bounce off of the ground, things like that. And all that's going to do is just make the light spread a ton more than the direct sunlight coming at you. And it can be
Also,
used in a bunch of different ways. Like I was saying, bright poppy, you can throw a color or a background behind it and do this in the sunlight. Um, that can be done super easily. You just need to make sure you're lighting your subject where the light you want where you want to hit the light, and then put the background behind it. And it can be done outside in your driveway if you wanted to. All you need to do is put a nice cardboard sheet of paper or something like that behind it to get that super bright poppy color out of your product and in the background too.
I know that there's some lighting um things that you can purchase on Amazon that attach to your phone. Would you recommend that, or do you think that those don't look as good?
I think it attaching your phone is a solid idea unless you want something like unless you don't want the light exactly coming from your camera. So a lot of times what we'll be doing is the camera will be set up like this Bahami shot here. The camera's set up almost overhead, and then you have your light coming from almost behind the photo back here. So it kind of depends. If you can buy one that you can put by itself and not only attach it to your phone, then you can definitely use it in that way. Otherwise, if you're outside and able to use the sun, which obviously everyone has it, that's the best way to do it because even the sun is brighter than any of our lights that we own down here. So using the sun is the first choice. Obviously, we're trying to do things super efficiently and even more crafted. So that's why we're using studio lights. But the sun is even brighter than anything we would use in the studio.
Awesome. Another question is what lighting mistakes should brands avoid when they're shooting their products?
So I think my main takeaway from this would be the biggest mistake is to not choose a direction. So whether you're kind of merging things of soft and hard or different style of lighting. So picking something that matches your brand and going with it, making sure it's consistent across the whole board. So whether I'm looking at your website, your social media, your emails that I got, an ad that pops up on my screen, whatever it is, or even stuff when I'm walking around a trade show booth or something like that, as long as everything is consistent, that's the first step in anything. So once you choose what, like you see your branding and you choose, okay, this is what suits my brand the best, and you go along and consistently shoot like that, or hire a studio and make sure you have these things already chosen or ask for those to be helped chosen for you, then you're already past the first step of making sure your photography looks as great as it possibly can.
Awesome. Um, how would brands prioritize like lighting improvements if like when they like when if they can't answer all of the issues, like what are the top things that you would recommend they focus on? Like especially when they're looking at their current photography and
Right.
trying to make a decision of how to move forward.
Right. So what I would say is, main thing when you're looking at a photo, obviously you want to be able to tell what brand it's coming from. So a lot of times, especially with Elevate Organic here, we will have problems with, okay, the light that we're shining might shine directly over this Elevate logo on the right side. And it's this super sharp line of light and you can't really read Elevate Organic. Obviously, that's a problem. We want you, as soon as you see the photo, to be able to identify what brand it's coming from so that you consciously know, okay, when I'm at the store, I'm looking for exactly this bottle with this brand on it. So I think that's one thing when you're lighting, is to make sure that your brand is visible and make sure you're not shining a light into it, or it's not too dark on the front of your on the front of your bottle or your packaging or whatever it is, so that people know what brand to attach this photo to. um, Other than that, mainly staying consistent with it. So once you choose a lane, basically you want to stick in that lane at least for a little while. Obviously, if it doesn't work and you end up not liking it after a while, you're able to switch and kind of pivot to a different way. But I would definitely say to pick a lane and give it a little bit of time to see if people start consciously um, likening your product to more natural setting or to a super bright, exciting, fun setting. Because once it takes a little bit of time, but once they do that, then they're always going to think of your product whenever they go for a hike, they're going to think of that. Or whenever they see a certain commercial for something else, they might almost think, oh, wait, that's just like this product that I buy at the grocery store because I see it all the time on Instagram or something like that.
Awesome. Um, Another question is how do you know when and I think you kind of answered it too, of like
Mhm.
how is lighting good enough to be considered like okay, like I'm hitting the mark. I can um
Mhm.
is it kind of is that the flip side of this as well?
Yeah, I think as long as you are able to recognize, or maybe not you, but as long as a consumer is able to recognize the brand and it sticks out enough on a scroll. So everybody always talks about like scroll stopping. Oh, this caught my attention during the Super Bowl. You only remember a couple of different commercials because those are the ones that were super memorable for whatever reason, whether it was super like touchy or whether it was super bright and poppy and they just yelled at you the entire time. There's a reason you're going to remember the brand and specifically the commercial or the photo that you see. So as long as you're visible and the consumer, as soon as they see that photo, knows what brand it's accompanying, I think that's like the biggest step forward. And then just making sure that everything is lit well enough. So you don't want a super dark photo. So even the photos here in the dark and moody category are lit super well enough to where I know that this is apocalypse, or I know that I'm supposed to be looking at popping boba. So as long as it's lit well enough to where you know where your eye should be drawn to and you know what that is going to be connected to, whether it's a brand or um, and even on this one with the popping boba, you would probably have some text on it somewhere in a graphic design. So you'd have a logo somewhere here. So as long as I see what I'm supposed to see and can connect it to a brand, then your photography is on the right track going to where they want it to go.
Awesome. So the other thing that I'm thinking about is just is there are there trends in lighting? You know, I feel like bright and poppy is just something that
Hmm.
I see everywhere. Is that, is that a trend? Is that just human psychology of gravitating towards that? And if it is a trend, like are there things on the horizon that we should be keeping an eye out for?
There are definitely trends for sure. And I think it kind of depends where you're at. Obviously, the larger, bigger companies like Poppy, like Nerds, are going to be kind of pushing the way in most of those categories most of the time. The bright and poppy, super contrasty is very in right now, and we're shooting a ton of that kind of content. But there's always going to be someone that stands out. So I think if everybody does the super bright and poppy setting, and then your whole entire feed is just like blasting colors and light and contrast and just crazy different things at you the entire time you're scrolling on Instagram, or when you're opening up your emails that you're getting, or even just pop-up ads, then at that point then nothing's standing out. So I think making sure you're true to yourself, because another thing is, if you are an apocalypse type or you're an elevate type and you do swap just to be trendy, after a while, you're probably going to hate it. Whereas opposed to, if Poppy continues with this for the next 30 years and that's their brand for the next 30 years, then they're going to be in a good spot because everyone's going to know it, no matter if it is a fad or whether it's not. So I think there's definitely trends, and it's not a problem to try to jump on those and see how your brand fits in them. But not every single brand is going to fit in every single trend. And the best way to probably find it is just to follow those large brands like that. So if you see something that looks different and it is a huge, large brand doing it, they're probably on the precipice of something that is going to be super popular that comes down the ladder in the next few months or so.
Hmm. And then Sean, and well, both you and Sean mentioned this. So the with white backgrounds, it's versus these stage designs, kind of the picture that you
Mhm.
have right now. When is the appropriate time to use a white background photo, and when is the time to use that stage design? Or is it kind of
So
intermingled in both?
yeah, I think it definitely can be. White background is perfect for a lot of things. Like Sean said, it'll last for forever. So as long as you're not changing your branding, changing your product a ton, it can last for literally years and years and years. Um, and it's used specifically, it's a designer's like best friend. So they're gonna use it. I'll swipe over to some of those examples real fast, but they're gonna use it in all these different circumstances of different graphics, and it's much easier to show or to get someone to be interested in a product when you're showing it, and when you're showing it for real, because a lot of times people will get mock-ups for super cheap, or they have somebody in their design team that can do quick and easy mock-ups, and they'll throw them on different ads like this one, different emails like this one, and they don't necessarily stand out nearly as much as a real photo will pop off the screen. And Sean said it kind of feels tangible. So especially AI is super prevalent now. It's not even becoming prevalent anymore. It is prevalent. So a ton of people are using AI or using design to kind of try to take place of photography and videography. And it's getting to the point where you kind of can tell when things are AI. Yes, there obviously are some really, really good examples that you might not be able to tell, but for the most part, on mock-ups and stuff like that, you can tell that it's not a real photo. And I think that when the consumer sees that, they're all like us, they're all seeing the same thing. They kind of just pass over it and aren't like, "Oh, that looks so mouth-watering. Oh, that looks beautiful. I wanna go buy that right now," or, "I wanna go to the website and kinda see what else they have." Um, so white background is used for all those kind of things. The more styled content, like we were showing prior, is going to be a lot more used in your ad assets. So if you're running paid ads on Meta, Facebook, and Instagram, Google, different things like that are going to be super poppy and catch attention. So obviously if your branding is like super crazy or super simple, it might pop off the screen from a white background, but it may not do it as nice and easy as one of these styled setups will do. So I think that kind of answered your question. Obviously these can still be used in different design areas too. Like I said, with this popping boba, it would be a beautiful ad. It would work on a website perfectly. Um, but it's also kind of a little bit more high level that you want to use. You want to put money behind stuff like this. White background can, you can put money behind it, but it may be more in the graphic design sense as opposed to just the basic photo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for just an excellent explanation. You don't think about it, but lighting is a huge part of your brand and just the kind of messaging that you're trying to portray. So this was super helpful. And I just want to thank everyone else for coming to the webinar. And if you have questions or anything like that, you can feel free to reach out to us at education@specialtyfood.com. But again, thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Caroline, for your partnership. Yeah, and thank you for putting that back up. If you have not filled out the form yet for April, there are some slots available still, and you hopefully will get there in time to be able to use this product. If not, there's always next month. So again, thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys.